Hello everyone, welcome to the first chapter of the Huawei HCIP Open Euler course. This section, we will continue to introduce the common service management content of Open Euler. The previous section, we describe how to install and test the engines, configure the main page, and configure static resources. The following describes how to set virtual host and routing rules, and how to implement the reverse proxy and load balancing functions.
Next, let's configure the virtual host of Nginx. You can access different resources through different IP address, ports, or domain name. First, we prepare resources. We create 3 directories in the /data directory, Nginx 1, 2, and 3. So we use make directory under the data Nginx 1, 2, 3. Create index.html in the 3 directories. We enter hello Nginx 1, hello Nginx 2, and hello Nginx 3. So we switch to the data directory and we use echo hello Nginx 1 to Nginx 1 index.html. Echo hello Nginx 2 to Nginx 2 index.html. Hello Nginx 3 to Nginx 3 index.html. To avoid mutual interference between configurations, delete the existing configuration file or modify the configuration file to the file with the end of .bk. Here you can see the static.conf configuration file, and we use move command to modify the name to static.conf.bk. We add the bk suffix, and the configuration file will become invalid. We create a configuration file and create the vhost.conf file. After that, we copy this section and configuration to configure the 3 virtual hosts to access resources based on different ports. Virtual host 1, port 81, and the data Nginx 1 is the main directory, and default page is index.html. Location is / indicates any matching. And second host, listening port 82, data Nginx 2. The third one, 83, and data Nginx 3. Okay, we save and quit. And then we use Nginx-T to check whether we have something wrong. We run Nginx-S reload. Now we can run the cur command to test virtual host with different ports. So first, port 81. It's hello Nginx 1. It's Nginx 1 HTML. Hello Nginx 1, 2, 3 is displayed. There is a 3 virtual hosts we have configured. Then let's try the location parameters configuration. First, we rename the directory Nginx 1 to capital N. So we move nginx1 to capital N. Then we modify the vhost configuration file. The first virtual host is not changed. Listen port 81, server name localhost. Location is default. Root data nginx1. Here is normal N, but we have changed it to capital N, nginx1. Default page index.html. The second one, location, we changed to /nginx2. The root path is changed to /data. All requests start with nginx2 will be redirected to the /data directory. And the third virtual host is not modified. By default, the location path is nginx3 is matched. We save and quit. Reload the nginx configuration. Next, let's test the 3 virtual hosts using the cur command. Cur localhost 81, it returns 404. This is because the redirected address is data lowercase nginx1, but nginx not found in corresponding static resources due to this modifying. And cur 82, it returns the earliest default page for welcome to nginx open Euler. This is because there is no index.html under the data directory to access. If we add nginx2 to the path, it returns 301. This is because after the /nginx2, it is directory and needs to be redirected. So we add one more slash to the end of the URL. It returns to hello nginx2. The third virtual host is also hello nginx3. Let's continue modify the configuration file. The first virtual host location is default match. Then we changed it to a regular expression. It means that the file ending in .html is case insensitive and redirected to the data nginx1 directory. And here is a capital N, nginx1. The second host location is changed to exact match equal /nginx2 index.html and redirect the request to the /data directory. The third virtual host is changed to precise matching /. So that is, it accepts only the request whose path is /, redirects the request to the data nginx3 directory. Save the configuration. Reload the service again. We kern port 81. It's returned normally. Nginx searches the data capital N nginx1 directory for all matching .html files and returns them. So if we want to return hello nginx2, how do we write the access path? Because the virtual host 2 uses the exact match and must strictly correspond to the URL in the configuration file. Therefore, the second virtual host must strictly correspond to nginx2/index.html. The command output can be properly displayed only when the exact matching is performed. There is no matching path. Error 404 is returned. Here, the wrong message. If you don't give it a path, the default page "Welcome to Nginx OpenEuler" is returned. So what do we do if we want to access Hello Nginx 3? Because in the configuration file, the URL of virtualhost 3 must end with a /. However, the actual path of the server is data nginx3/index.html, which cannot end with a /. Therefore, the corresponding resources cannot be accessed, and the system returns to the default home page. So we modify the configuration file again. We change the location of the first localhost to /N nginx1, redirect to data, and search for the default index.html page. The second virtual host only sends the matching /nginx2 request. This time the exact match is not set. We change root to alias /data/nginx2/index.html. The third virtual host exact matches / and redirects to the data nginx3. Okay, now we save and also reload the configuration. The first one, we current localhost and port 81 is returned to the welcome page. Because the path is /nginx1, we did not specify the path, and index.html is not under /data, so we have to add the path /N nginx1 here. Since this is a directory, add / to return. Hello Nginx1. To return Hello Nginx2, we current localhost port 82. It also returns the welcome page, since the specified path is not recognized. So here we add the path /nginx2, and it returns the correct one. As you can see, we do not add / to the end of the nginx2, but add / to the end of nginx2. It's wrong. It is because the root path is changed from relative path to alias absolute path on a second virtual host. Even if without /, the defined absolute path can be returned. And to return Hello Nginx3, you need to add a / to match the configuration file. However, the index.html file in data nginx3 cannot be end with a /. Therefore, the welcome page is returned. So to return Hello Nginx3, we can set the exact match / in a configuration file. Next, let's configure the reverse proxy and load balancing functions of Nginx. Based on the configuration of the virtual host in the previous step, let's try to have virtual host 1 provide proxy service for virtual host 3. So we modify the vhost configuration file. The first host location, we set the general matching for location. We comment out the root and index lines below. The root and index parameter do not take effect on the proxy. The reverse proxy is through proxy underline pass. HTTP 127.0.0.1 and port 83. Proxy services are provided for the third virtual host. No changes are made to the second virtual host. For third virtual host, the exact match we set cannot display in hello Nginx 3. Therefore, we need to delete the exact match. Save and quit. Let's check again. There is something wrong with line 8. And there's one missing here. Okay, after we modified, we reload again. Now we kernel port 81. Universal match proxy the third virtual host hello Nginx 3. The third service return Nginx 3 also. The second kernel server needs to add the Nginx 2 index HTML, the same as the previous configuration. The next, let's set virtual host 1 to provide proxy service for virtual host 2. Also modify the configuration file, and here proxy pass to port 82/Nginx 2. In addition, the path of host 1 is set to Nginx 1, and the path of virtual host 2 and 3 remains unchanged. We see the setting and reload the Nginx configuration. Then we run the kernel port 81, Nginx 1. To locate the path, port 82, Nginx 2. The message is hello Nginx 2. This is the Nginx reverse proxy function. Now let's experience Nginx load balancing. Of course, these two scenarios are experienced scenarios, which are greatly different from actual work. Therefore, it is not recommended to use this architecture in actual work. First, we restore the vhost.conf file to the initial configuration when the virtual host was first configured. So here we modify and then we copy the content, port 81/Nginx 1 and 82/83. Then we restore capital Nginx 1 to normal Nginx 1. After that, we tree data directory structures is as follows. Here Nginx 1, 2, and 3, and hello Nginx 1, 2, 3. the capital Nginx has index hello OpenEuler and logo and hello Nginx txt file. We reload the Nginx configuration and check whether the virtual host can be accessed. And then we kern port 81, 82, and 83. Every service is ready, and then we modify the load balancing configuration file. So we create lb load balance.conf. As mentioned before, load balancing is implemented by upstream. It defines a virtual host group named 3w.test.com, which contains 3 virtual hosts and listening ports 81, 82, and 83 of local hosts respectively. This is a backend server for load balancing. The server module defines a module that receives all requests. In this module, location defines the reverse proxy. If the request URI matches the location, the Nginx proxy is requested the upstream virtual host group 3w.test.com. In this configuration file, Nginx selects a server in the server group to process requests based on the health status of upstream servers. If the virtual host cannot work properly, Nginx automatically forwards the request to another server that can work properly. So after we save in the configuration and reload the Nginx configuration. In addition, you need to manually add the static domain name resolution of 3w.test.com to the static domain name resolution on a local computer. So we add the localhost etc host file loopback address with 3w.test.com. We save the configuration. We visit the server multiple times with the command kern 3w.test.com. And we observed that each request was served by 3 virtual hosts in turn. Next, we add wait-related configurations for load balancing. For example, add the wait values 2 and 1 for ports 81 and 82. So here we add for port 81, wait equals to 2, and port 82, wait equals 1. And we save the setting, reload the Nginx configuration. Then we run the kern 3w.test.com command to access the Nginx again. The result of Nginx 1 is more frequent than that of Nginx 2 and 3. Then we configure another standby server, modify the lb.conf file, and we add a backup field to the end of the first server. Okay, after that, we kern the domain name again to access the Nginx server. You can see that Nginx does not forward requests to virtual host 1. So only 2 and 3 provide service. We modify the lb.conf configuration file and set the second and third nodes to done. The first standby host is now ready to be enabled. Let's test. When we current multiple accesses, we can see that only virtual host 1 responds to the service. So if the first server is marked backup, the second server is not marked, and the third server is marked done, which virtual host can access? Yes, only the second host can respond. Because virtual host 3 is in the done state, host 2 is still in the available state. Nginx still not forward the request to standby virtual host 1, and the system returns the resources. Hello, Nginx 2, provided by virtual host 2. So here is considering our interjection and configuration operations of Nginx.
In these two sections, we have demonstrated how to install and configure Nginx, how to configure the Nginx main page, static resources, virtual hosts, and routing rules, and how to verify the reverse proxy and load balancing functions. That's all for the introduce to Nginx. And we are going to talk about DNS in the next section. Thank you for watching.